Okay, so hi everyone, welcome. My name is Jennifer. I'm one of the hosts for Weekly Dharma Gathering, and I'm happy to welcome you all tonight and to welcome Rashid Hughes, who's here to lead tonight's session on grief, the power of ritual. So we'll start with a bit of a guided meditation, we'll have a Dharma talk, and then we'll close with some time for Q&A. Just a note that tonight's being recorded, and so if you prefer not to be on camera, you can turn off your camera. That's also true of when you're on mic speaking to ask a question, that will be recorded as well. This talk will be available within 48 hours on the Weekly Dharma Gathering website, and you'll get an email when it becomes available online. So I am happy to welcome Rashid Hughes. Rashid Hughes is a native of Richmond, Virginia. He's a proud graduate of Howard University Department of Music and the Howard University School of Divinity. Rashid is a certified mindfulness and yoga teacher and a restorative justice specialist in Washington, DC. He's also an affiliate teacher of the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, DC. In 2019, Rashid co-founded the Heart Refuge Mindfulness Community, a mindfulness community in Washington, DC, that is dedicated to inspiring Black, Indigenous, and people of color to live with love and courage. Rashid's devotion to truth and compassion leads him to teach faith-based and non-religious audiences, including secular mindfulness communities, Buddhist sanghas, and the Black Church. The teachings of James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, and the music of Miles Davis and John Coltrane are deep sources of inspiration and hope for Rashid. Rashid is devoted to helping all people achieve fulfillment through radical honesty and self-compassion. Thank you for being here, Rashid.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just wanted to also just shout out Dr. Shante Smalls for just continuing to extend the invitation to me to come back to be a facilitator, to be a part of the Weekly Dharma Gathering. I really appreciate that. So tonight we're gonna, I'm just gonna share some reflections around grief and how rituals, really explore how ritual can support us in grieving more and making grief a part of our spiritual practices. But before that, we'll do a brief, maybe 20, 25-minute guided practice, and then we'll do some exploration together. All right, so if you can just find a posture that works for you, a posture that feels okay for you. And I'll be inviting 3 sounds of the bell to acknowledge that we'll be starting our practice. Okay, so just allowing yourself to find a posture that's comfortable for you. And really just checking in with your system, your body, and just kind of sensing into the question around, should I be standing? Should I be lying down? How does my body need to be right now? And just doing your best to honor that. And once you've found that posture, just bring to mind your intention for practicing. Is your intention for practicing to really feel the body, to really just be with your experience right now? Are you practicing on behalf of others? Just sensing into What's my intention for practice? And also really just sensing into how precious this moment is, how much of a blessing it is for us to be able to pause and to slow down and to feel. This is a gift, even though it should be given. It's not the case. So may we just be grateful for this, just this moment right here. And while sensing into the gratitude for this moment, just doing your best to allow your body just to be as natural as possible. Allowing any unnecessary holding or unnecessary ways of being in the body that we may just be carrying into practice unintentionally. So just offering your body the invitation just to be, just to relax. And allow yourself to really, really sense into the feeling of slowing down. Noticing the felt experience of just being still, bringing the body to stillness, just allowing this to rest in your awareness. And there may be parts of the body that may need to move, and we can notice that as well. It's okay. And allowing your breathing to be normal. When I say normal, just however it is, just allowing it to be that way without controlling, without any form of manipulation of the breath. Allowing the breath to be known within awareness, just like the body is felt and known in and by awareness. So body just being natural as it is, breathing, being allowed to flow in whatever way that it's flowing uniquely in this moment. Not allowing all of this to be known by awareness and within awareness. And also allowing your mind to to just rest naturally. Kind of in this directionless attentiveness. So no need to focus the attention, and no need to direct the attention anywhere or away from anything. Inviting your attention to rest as well. Open, receptive, free of control and obligation. Awareness being aware of the body, the natural movement of the breath. Just being here and open. And while resting in this open awareness, just also noticing, allowing sounds to be a part of this knowing. So allowing your awareness to be receptive to hearing, not on a particular sound, but just hearing itself. Allow hearing to be also included in the field of awareness. So nothing to actually focus on. It's more so allowing every sound to be included rather than singled out. Just resting open and receptive. And sometimes the attention will wander, but in the space of just resting our attention and being open and receptive, it's impossible for the attention wandering to be a disturbance to our practice, because even the attention wandering is known, just like the body is known and felt, just like the breath, the rhythm, sensations of breathing are known. Just like hearing is known, so too is openness versus a wandering or contracted mind that's also known. So it's no need to fight or control or maintain. just rest and be natural, just be ordinary. And in this space of receptivity and openness, also allowing the feeling of your head to be included within this large field of awareness. So the experience of your head, allowing that to be known and felt. So not necessarily attempting to pinpoint a particular part of your head, but just allowing awareness to kind of wrap itself around within the experience of your head so that it's no longer outside of awareness. So awareness is just holding our heads and allowing your attention to also shift down the body to holding your shoulders, creating space for your shoulders to be known and witnessed within awareness, allowing your shoulders to really be given permission by your attention that they can just float and just be held without being required to do anything. And also including, not forgetting your head and shoulders as we shift down to our elbows. So awareness does not have to leave behind the other parts of our bodies in order to feel the elbows. So just relaxing and feeling the elbows, allowing the elbows to be awakened by the light of awareness, the light of knowing. Feeling the elbows, letting the elbows float in awareness. And the same thing for our backs. Don't have to let go of the head or the shoulders or the elbows in order to also feel the back. Allowing the back to be felt and sensed, all within the same feel that our head and shoulders and elbows are being felt. And we also allow our back to just float as sensations. So not solidifying our back, really sensing into how it's just so sensation, energy moving within awareness. And shifting down to include our hips, pelvic region. Not omitting our head and shoulders and elbows and back, but including our hips and pelvic region. Saying, ah, here you are. And sensing maybe tension and allowing sensation known as the pelvic and hips, allowing these sensations the space to float, to move, to shift, to change, to release, to exhale, all within the same field of awareness. It's the back, elbows, shoulders, and head. And now including our knees, welcoming our knees into the picture, sensing our knees as sensation. Holding, allowing awareness to just be the holding, the container for our knees. And we hold them lightly so that they can float. The sensations, any releasing any tension, any holding can float as well and loosen. And now we're going to add on our feet. So we have our head, shoulders, elbows, back, hips, pelvic region, knees, and our feet. So basically the whole body. Just sensing the whole body as sensation rather than one solid thing. So we feel our feet first. Maybe they're touching the floor. And then we let go of the idea of feet and we just allow sensation to be felt and known and held by awareness. But held in a way that promotes freedom and releasing. So we just have sensation, the whole body as sensation now, being held by and within awareness. And as we sense the whole body, just also imagining that the body is alive and breathing. So rather than breathing, by being focused on breathing in your nostrils, imagine that the pores of our body on our skin, we're breathing from the pores of our body. So it's a whole body awareness breathing. So we feel the skin, we feel the border of our bodies. And we relax, and with every inhale, we feel the body breathing in. And with every exhale, we feel the body releasing. The body breathes on its own, just like we normally breathe. It can be the same rhythm. No need to alter or change anything, except we're now including the whole body in the experience of breathing, rather than having the breath centralized in the face. breathing centralized in the face. Now the breathing is happening through all of the pores of the body. And as we bring this practice to a close, just maybe bringing to mind someone that may be in need of some loving kindness or prayer. Or maybe it's a group of people, and just offering a wish of kindness. Maybe it's just simply, may you be well. May you have all that you need. Or maybe that's your prayer for the world right now. Okay, and that I'll be inviting 3 sounds of the bell. Okay, so thank you for your practice. Maybe just taking a few moments to just loosen the body up, maybe some shoulder rotations or arm, neck rotations. And if it feels right, we'll go ahead and to just having a little bit of reflection around this idea of grief and ritual. So, for me, one thing that I'm becoming really interested in and curious about is the impact of capitalism and white supremacy on our minds and our hearts and our bodies. And really in the context of rest, but also in the context of grief. And one impact of capitalism and white supremacy is that we begin to live from this place of our worth is attached to how much we can work and produce or what we do, right? And when we become conditioned and we adopt that belief, there's usually also this idea that this struggle with having idle time to just really be and just to do nothing. Because we can feel like in the doing nothing, we're missing out or we won't have what we need or we might fall behind. And this is very much true for people who are descendants of slavery, but really for everyone, because we are all, especially in America, we're all a part of this system of conditioning. And the result of this type of of conditioning and belief system is that we begin to lose connection with many of our rituals that may be indigenous to our cultures, but also just indigenous uh, to our communities that we may have come from. And those rituals are important because they help us to disrupt ways of living that lead to fatigue and disconnection from the body. And ritual also helps us to disrupt ways of living that lead us to forgetting that we should be held and received by society and seen and valued within society, but it also tends to block the memory that we also have something to offer to society, right? So it's like, you know, there's this this two way of how I see us living in society. You know, we receive from society and then we share our gifts with society. And ritual helps us to stay in that cycle, that momentum, right? And this is huge because being in relationship with our bodies and listening to our bodies and staying close to ritual, it gives us feedback on what we may need to be given attention to in our lives. It keeps us close, it keeps warmth, awareness. When we're in ritual, awareness is active and it illuminates those things that are important for us to step into and to continue. But awareness also can illuminate and make known those parts of ourselves that we're beginning to leave behind. So we must always remember that our ability to stop and feel is directly connected to our ability to receive love and to be able to offer our gifts as love to our communities or our individual villages. And ritual helps us to stay in that movement of receiving, slowing down and receiving, gaining clarity, and also seeing, okay, now it's time for me to pour out, right? So the aspect of ritual that I really want to focus on just for a few more moments is the part of ritual that helps us to see our our interconnectedness to the larger self, right? So not just me, but to me being connected to you, my neighbors, the earth, the environment, and so on. Right? So the question that I propose that I've been reflecting on is how do we create rituals that help us to grieve more? Because as a result of, even just presently the pandemic, but of capitalism and white supremacy, many of us have become separate from creating ritual in order to help us to remain connected to the bodies, because capitalism pulls us, is constantly pulling us away from slowing down and feeling. Right? So how do we create rituals that help us to listen to our bodies, to listen to nature, to listen to the environment, to listen to our ancestors? And in that, also making room for grief. So I guess the question is to ask, do we actually have a place for grief in our spiritual practice? What does grief look like in our spiritual walk? And one way that I like to define grief is not necessarily from a place of, there's heartbreak or sorrow because I lost someone or I lost something or because something has shifted. but I look at grief as the process of remembering the importance of feeling and integrating those parts of us that busyness has caused us to ignore or to miss out because we're so focused on doing or focused on surviving. When we're in a place of survival, we forget the importance of rest. We forget the importance of feeling. And when we aren't feeling, we aren't grieving. So here, when I talk about grief, I'm not talking about the loss of someone or something, but I'm talking about the recognition that we have missed something that's integral to not only our survival, but for the survival and upkeep of our culture, our villages, our home, our friends, our neighbors. And what I've been learning recently in my personal practice is that sometimes grief finds you. We don't always, we aren't always, grief isn't always a response to something that's happened, in the sense that, you know, I'm grieving the loss of, right? But sometimes grief is something that reveals itself as a call to us. Sometimes grief is more so life calling us to pay attention. And awareness practices, meditation is so important because awareness helps us to remain close to what's arising and what's emerging from moment to moment. So when grief emerges and we are awake to ourselves and we're rested and we're grounded and we're being fueled and nurtured by ritual ongoingly, then we hear the call of grief when it emerges. Right? So there's a short story of how I describe grief finding me. I spent some time at home with my mom um, over the last 6 months as my fiance and I were buying a new home. The Our buying time took a lot longer than we thought. The market was kind of crazy. So I was at home with mom for a while. And I noticed that my mom naturally had ritual. You know, there was a time of day that she did her exercise. There was a time of day that she ate. There was a time of day that she shopped. There was a time of day that she stopped doing everything. She had natural ritual. Ritual was a part of her life. There was a time when she checked in with family and talked to friends. Um, and it shifted every day. But what I was able to do, I was able to be a part of ritual, her ritual. And part of that was sitting down every day after work and eating and talking. And in our conversations, what I began to become aware of, and this is the first time I really, really felt this after 32 years um, of being here with my mom, is I really became aware of how she had to think about every part of her day so that she could remain well as a chronic pain survivor, right? I became aware of that by just observing her throughout the day and having conversation with her, right? We didn't necessarily have conversation about um, chronic pain. We talked about it a little, but it wasn't like we sat down and said, let's talk about pain now. But it was more so I began to observe how, and this is the grief that I'm talking about. So hopefully this comes together. I observed within myself how I missed the opportunity to feel what it was like to live in her shoes the 32 years prior to this moment. I recognized that I had missed her pain all of these years, not seeing her as a mother living in a house with 4 people, raising kids. And I I did not have the capacity, I wasn't awake to her pain. So for me, the grieving was feeling and mourning all of that time in the present moment that I was not present to her reality, right? And that was, that was, it was a lot, but it's also been teaching me about grieving, because it's not like I lost my mom, but the loss was moments that I had missed to love, moments of connection, moments to bear witness to, and to be of service to someone in need, right? And when I say someone in need, I'm saying more so rather than someone in need, but to bear witness to another person's reality that may be different from mine, and include that in to be a part of my practice. So for me, grieving is remaining close to those memories that come up that display opportunities that I missed to extend love, and in those moments bringing all of the emotion and sorrow that comes along with that, bringing that and making it a part of ritual. So I have to create ritual around that, so that I don't forget it, so that I don't lose it, right? So the question is, how can I create ritual to integrate this sorrow into my practice, so my responsibility to feel with others never goes to sleep again, you know? So a question, that I have for you all is how do you allow grief to be a part of your life? Right? And it's ongoing, right? It's Grieving is not linear. There isn't a starting point and an end point. It's more so like a circle. It's a cycle that continues. And if we're really living in an embodied way, we will see that there's a part of us that's always inviting us to grieve something. Those moments when we clearly see I missed an opportunity to love, right? Like we have to pause and feel that, right? And it's the grief is like life giving us an opportunity to love our old selves that miss those moments, right? And that's the integration, or metabolizing. It's like we create the ritual to keep those moments warm to us. Like I don't ever want to allow those memories to go away from my consciousness, right? I don't ever want to become separate from that, because they nourish me. They keep the flame of compassion going. So it's like we don't practice just so that we can awaken to the nature of mind and reality. We practice so that we can also be a container for grief. And like I said, there's some parts of me that wishes that those moments that I miss would always reemerge to keep my practice alive. So then I really become this container. I'll have my mom. My mom will be always close to me, right? So meditation grounds us in awareness and spaciousness so that we don't fall asleep, so that we don't become consumed by doing and producing, missing the little moments in life where life is asking us to really feel and to bear witness. So we feel in a radical way. Grieving is a radical process. And when I say radical, we're feeling from our true nature, from this awakened place. We're feeling from spaciousness. So it's not, we don't have to worry about being overcome by the grief. We don't have to worry about not being able to handle it, because we're really engaging with grief from a place of emptiness, meaning not being attached to our own strength to be able to deal with something, right? So we rest in awareness, and then we explore ritual, and we continue to remain close to the question, how can I create ritual so that I may grieve ongoingly? So I think I'll rest here, and thank you for listening, and maybe we'll open up for questions or.
Great. Thank you so much, Rashid, for that talk. Um, I appreciated the way that you were sort of framing ritual as something that doesn't have to necessarily be this sort of huge production, talking about having conversations with your mother and sharing a meal together every day, and that can be a ritual. So I appreciate that sort of reframing of ritual as being something that can be quite simple and manageable, and something that's really easy to think about incorporating. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how, in your mind, how you sort of open up to that grieving, to remain close to the experience while not being consumed maybe by that grief, and sort of getting caught up in the grieving piece of it and keeping it as something that's sort of more productive, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so one of the essential aspects of ritual is that there's usually some type of, I would say, some type of grounding into whether it's into awareness, whether it's to the grounding into earth, sensing ourselves one with God, or with ancestors, or a spiritual figure. There's some way that we connect to a larger sense of belonging, and from that place, that helps us, whether it's benefactors, it helps us to not feel like it's our job to move beyond the grief. So when we hold grief, it's just like, equanimity is super important, because there's no agenda with grief except to befriend it, right? And it's, in this context, I'm really not focusing on ritual as if it's like, oh, now I'm gonna do a ritual for this. But I'm talking about the grieving that we feel every day. There's some part of us that's saying, hey, look at me, feel me. It's happening all the time. So when we're able to pause in those moments, then I think we begin to have a practice of grieving where we become the container. But we have to find a way of connecting ongoingly also with a feeling of, of spaciousness. Right?
I'm also thinking a lot about this, this sort of breaking some of the cycles of, like you were talking about at the beginning with capitalism and white supremacy and sort of feeling caught up in that and just needing to be able to connect with community and sort of make space for that, um, especially at this time when everybody's so disconnected, when we're so in
Hmm.
many ways physically separate from a lot of folks. And so just thinking about how that's possible in this moment, practically. So that's making me think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really important for us to see, see, ritual helps us to see where we're stuck and where we aren't free, right? So it doesn't have to be, like it doesn't have to be that we're attempting to disrupt entire systems on our own and do anything that requires um, too much of ourselves. No, the type of rituals that I'm talking about are simply saying, stopping and breathing and saying, "Oh, mom, now I feel your pain. I understand." Right? So imagine if every time something arose within our conscience that revealed how we missed the opportunity to love, that we gave it our wholehearted attention and named it and owned it and really honored it in that moment. Like how the world would be different, right?
Yeah, thank you. Um, so I suppose we can end here if that feels good for you right now.
That feels
Um,
good.
a lot to think about. Thank you so much for all of this wisdom and sharing these teachings and for being here.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
I'll just make a note for folks listening to please follow Weekly Dharma Gathering. You can become a subscriber, follow on social media. Instagram is Weekly Dharma and Facebook is Weekly Dharma Gathering. There's a talk next week as well. That is going to be an interview um, with Dr. Shante Paradigm Smalls with Sensei Zenju about Dharma, the state of the world, and many other topics. So please join for that as well.